Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today we explore a profound question. How do we draw closer to God, not just in routine, but in a way that transforms our lives? We live in a world filled with distractions, worries, and noise. It's easy to feel distant from God, as if He is far away, but the truth is He has never moved. It is we who must take intentional steps to draw nearer to Him. Seeking God with your whole heart is the foundation of a deep and meaningful relationship with Him. It is more than a casual pursuit or a momentary desire. It is a wholehearted commitment to knowing Him, walking in His ways, and living a life that reflects His presence. Many people want to experience closeness with God, but true intimacy requires effort, dedication, and sincerity. It is not something that happens automatically or by chance. It is the result of a heart that longs for Him above all else. When we seek God with our whole heart, we prioritize Him over everything in our lives. In today's fast-pacing world, it is easy to become consumed by distractions, work, entertainment, social media, and personal ambitions. While these things are not inherently wrong, they can become barriers if they take precedence over our relationship with God. Seeking Him fully means making a conscious decision to place Him at the center of our lives, ensuring that our time, energy, and thoughts are directed toward knowing Him better. One of the most powerful promises in Scripture is that those who seek God with their whole heart will find Him. He does not hide from those who truly desire to know Him. This is a reminder that our pursuit of Him is not in vain. However, seeking God is not just about reading His Word occasionally or saying a quick prayer when we need something. It is about developing a consistent and intimate relationship with Him through daily prayer, worship, and meditation on His Word. It is about longing for His presence, not just His blessings. A wholehearted pursuit of God also means being honest and open with Him. There is no need to pretend or put on a facade because He already knows our hearts. Many people approach God only when they feel they have everything together, but the truth is, He invites us to come to Him as we are. He desires authenticity, and He draws near to those who are willing to be vulnerable before Him. The more we open our hearts to Him, the closer we become. Another important aspect of seeking God with our whole heart is obedience. It is not enough to desire closeness with Him if we are not willing to follow His guidance. Many times people want the benefits of a relationship with God without the commitment to walk in His ways. However, true intimacy with Him comes when we align our lives with His will. When we obey His Word and live according to His principles, we position ourselves to experience His presence in a deeper way. Seeking God with all our heart also involves perseverance. There will be times when we feel distant from Him, times when we face trials, and moments when our faith is tested. In those moments, it is easy to become discouraged and give up. However, a heart that is truly seeking God does not waver in difficult times. Instead, it presses on, knowing that He is faithful and that He rewards those who diligently seek Him. One of the greatest examples of seeking God wholeheartedly is found in the life of King David. Despite his flaws and failures, David was called a man after God's own heart because he pursued God passionately. He was not perfect, but his desire to know and follow God was unwavering. He poured out his heart in worship, repented when he sinned, and continually sought God's guidance. His life serves as a reminder that what matters most is the posture of our hearts. When we make seeking God our highest priority, everything else in our lives falls into place. Our perspective shifts, our worries lessen, and our faith grows stronger. We begin to experience His peace, joy, and guidance in ways we never imagined. He is always near, waiting for us to draw close. And when we do so with all our heart, we will find Him. Walking in God's presence daily is a way of life rather than a single moment of devotion. It means living with an awareness of Him in every aspect of our lives, whether in times of joy or difficulty. Many people limit their relationship with God to certain activities like attending church, reading the Bible occasionally, or praying in moments of need. However, closeness with God is cultivated when we acknowledge Him in all that we do, recognizing that He is not just present during religious activities, but in every breath we take. To walk in God's presence means to develop a continuous personal relationship with Him. Just as a close friendship requires constant communication and time spent together, our relationship with God deepens when we remain connected to Him throughout the day. This does not mean withdrawing from daily responsibilities or isolating ourselves in prayer all the time, but rather it means carrying an attitude of awareness and dependence on Him no matter where we are or what we are doing. Whether at work, at home, or in social settings, we should strive to maintain a sense of His presence. One of the most effective ways to cultivate this awareness is through prayer. Prayer is not just about asking for things, it is about communion with God, sharing our thoughts, emotions, and gratitude with Him. A person who walks in God's presence prays not only in designated moments, but throughout the day. Simple, heartfelt conversations with God, acknowledging Him in small decisions and thanking Him for daily blessings, create a deeper sense of connection. Another essential aspect of walking in God's presence is filling our minds with His Word. The Bible is not just a book to be read occasionally, but a guide for daily living. Meditating on Scripture and applying its teachings to our lives allows us to align our thoughts and actions with God's will. When we fill our hearts with His truth, we are more likely to recognize His presence in our circumstances. His Word becomes the lens through which we see the world, helping us respond with wisdom, love, and faith. Living in God's presence also requires a heart that is surrendered to Him. Many times people struggle to feel close to God because they hold on to control, relying on their own understanding rather than trusting in Him. Surrendering means acknowledging that we do not have all the answers and allowing Him to lead our lives. When we let go of fear, pride, and self-sufficiency, we make room for His presence to guide and strengthen us. Obedience plays a key role in walking in God's presence. We cannot expect to feel close to Him while knowingly walking in ways that contradict His will. When we choose to obey His word, even when it is difficult or inconvenient, we position ourselves to experience His presence in a more profound way. Obedience is not about following rules out of obligation. It is an act of love that draws us closer to Him. The more we align our actions with His will, the more we sense His presence in our lives. Another important aspect is worship. Worship is not just about singing songs in church. It is a lifestyle of honoring God in all we do. When we live with gratitude, love, and reverence for Him, our very lives become an act of worship. True worship shifts our focus from our problems to His greatness, allowing us to remain aware of His presence even in the midst of challenges. Walking in God's presence also involves seeing Him in others. When we treat people with kindness, patience, and love, we reflect His character and draw nearer to Him. God often reveals Himself through acts of love and service, and when we choose to love others as He commands, we walk in step with Him. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to display His presence to the world. When we make a habit of acknowledging God in all things, we begin to recognize His presence in ways we never noticed before. His voice becomes clearer, His guidance more evident, and His peace more tangible. The more we walk in His presence, the more natural it becomes, transforming our hearts and shaping us into His likeness. Letting go of worldly attachments is essential in drawing closer to God. Many people desire a deeper relationship with Him, but struggle because their hearts are divided. The world is filled with distractions that can pull us away from God, whether it be material possessions, ambitions, entertainment, or even unhealthy relationships. While these things are not always bad, they can become obstacles if they take priority over our spiritual growth. True closeness to God requires a willingness to surrender anything that competes for His place in our hearts. One of the biggest barriers to spiritual closeness is the pursuit of material wealth and success. Society often measures a person's worth by their financial status, career achievements, and possessions. While working hard and achieving success are not wrong, they can become dangerous when they consume our thoughts and desires. The Bible warns that love for money and earthly treasures can lead a person away from God. If accumulating wealth or striving for recognition becomes more important than seeking Him, our relationship with Him will suffer. Instead of placing our security in material things, we should trust in God's provision, knowing that He is the source of everything we need. When we let go of our attachment to wealth and possessions, we free ourselves to experience the true riches of His presence. Another worldly attachment that can hinder our closeness to God is the desire for approval from others. Many people shape their lives around the opinions and expectations of those around them, fearing rejection or criticism. This often leads to compromise, where a person may choose to conform to societal norms rather than stand firm in their faith. The need for validation can cause individuals to prioritize pleasing people over pleasing God. However, true fulfillment is not found in human approval, but in a relationship with the one who created us. When we shift our focus from seeking validation from others to seeking God's approval, we gain confidence and peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. Living for God rather than for the approval of people allows us to experience a deeper connection with Him and live with greater purpose. Worldly distractions also play a significant role in pulling people away from God. In today's fast-pacing world, there is an overwhelming amount of entertainment, technology, and social media that can consume our time and attention. While these things are not inherently bad, they can become hindrances if they dominate our thoughts and energy. Many people spend hours scrolling through their phones, watching television, or engaging in leisure activities, yet struggle to find time to pray, read the Bible, or worship. If God is truly our priority, then our actions should reflect that. Time is one of the most valuable gifts we have, and how we use it reveals what matters most to us. By intentionally setting aside distractions and dedicating time to our spiritual growth, we create space for God to move in our lives. Choosing to limit time spent on worldly distractions and instead investing in our relationship with Him leads to greater peace, wisdom, and spiritual fulfillment. Letting go of worldly attachments is not always easy, but it is necessary for a deeper relationship with God. It requires intentional choices, a willingness to surrender, and a heart that seeks Him above all else. As we release our grip on materialism, human approval, and distractions, we make room for His presence to fill our lives. He promises that when we seek Him first, everything else will fall into place. Letting go is not about losing something, it is about gaining something far greater, the joy, peace, and closeness that come from walking with God. Faith and obedience are essential for drawing closer to God. Many people desire a deeper relationship with Him, but they hesitate when faced with the steps required to grow spiritually. Faith is more than simply believing that God exists. It is trusting Him completely, even when circumstances seem uncertain. Obedience is the natural response to faith, as true trust in God leads to action. Without obedience, faith remains incomplete. When we take steps of faith and follow His commands, we open the door for a more intimate relationship with Him. Faith is built through trust in God's promises. Throughout Scripture, God calls His people to trust Him, even when they do not fully understand His plans. Abraham was asked to leave his homeland and go to a place God would show him without knowing where he was going. Moses was instructed to lead the Israelites out of Egypt despite his doubts about his ability. Peter was invited to step out of the boat and walk on water toward Jesus despite the impossibility of the situation. In each case, their faith required them to take action even when logic and fear might have told them otherwise. Faith is not just about knowing that God is powerful, it is about living in a way that demonstrates trust in His power. Obedience is a demonstration of our love for God. Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments." Many people want to feel close to God, but they struggle with following His instructions. Sometimes His commands may seem difficult or countercultural, but they are always for our good. Obedience is not about following rules for the sake of it. It is about aligning our lives with God's will so that we can experience the fullness of His presence. When we obey God, we show Him that we trust His wisdom more than our own. It is through obedience that we experience His guidance, peace, and blessings. Faith and obedience require surrender. Often, people hesitate to fully commit to God because they want to maintain control over their lives. They trust Him in some areas but hold back in others. However, a deep relationship with God requires complete surrender. Trusting Him means letting go of fear, pride, and self-reliance. It means believing that His plans are better than our own, even when we do not understand them. When we surrender to Him, we stop relying on our own strength and start depending on His. This level of trust brings peace because we no longer carry the burden of figuring everything out on our own. Stepping out in faith and obedience deepens our experience of God's presence. When we take steps of obedience, even when they seem difficult, God meets us there. He does not call us to follow him and then leave us alone. Instead, he walks with us, providing strength, wisdom, and peace. The more we trust him and follow his ways, the more we see his hand at work in our lives. This, in turn, strengthens our faith even more. As we continue to obey him, our relationship with him grows deeper, and we experience the closeness we long for. Choosing faith and obedience does not mean that life will always be easy. There will be challenges, tests, and moments of uncertainty. However, when we trust in God's faithfulness and commit to walking in his ways, we find security in his presence. Faith and obedience are not burdens. They are pathways to a deeper, more fulfilling relationship with him. God desires to walk closely with us, and when we step forward in faith and live in obedience to his word, we will find that he is always near, guiding us every step of the way. Closeness to God is not about following a set of religious rules, but about developing a personal relationship with him. Many people associate spirituality with rituals, traditions, and obligations, believing that these practices alone will bring them closer to God. While religious disciplines can be meaningful, they are not the foundation of true intimacy with him. God desires more than outward acts. He longs for a relationship built on love, trust, and genuine connection. Just as human relationships thrive on communication, time, and commitment, our relationship with God grows when we engage with him personally rather than just through routine practices. A true relationship with God requires sincerity. It is not about appearing holy or performing religious duties to impress others. Many people go through the motions of faith without experiencing a real connection with God because their focus is on external appearances rather than the condition of their hearts. God sees beyond religious acts and looks at the sincerity of our devotion. He desires a relationship where we come to him honestly with our joys, struggles, doubts, and gratitude. Rather than relying on routines, we should approach him with an open heart, allowing him to transform us from the inside out. A personal relationship with God is nurtured through consistent communication. Just as strong friendships require regular interaction, our closeness with God deepens when we talk to him daily. Prayer is not just about asking for things. It is a conversation with a loving Father who desires to hear from us. Spending time in prayer, listening for his guidance, and sharing our hearts with him strengthens our connection. Instead of viewing prayer as a duty, we should see it as an opportunity to build a meaningful relationship with the one who knows us completely. Another key aspect of closeness with God is recognizing his presence in everyday life. Many people limit their spiritual connection to certain times, such as church services or special moments of devotion. However, God is not confined to specific places or rituals. He is present in every aspect of our lives, at work, in our homes, in conversations, and even in mundane tasks. When we cultivate an awareness of his presence, we begin to see him in the ordinary moments of life. This awareness allows us to remain connected to him throughout the day, not just during scheduled times of worship. True closeness with God is also built on love rather than fear. Some people follow religious practices out of obligation or fear of punishment, believing that they must earn God's favor. However, God's desire is not for us to serve him out of fear, but out of love. When we understand his unconditional love for us, we are drawn to him not because we have to be, but because we want to be. Love fosters a deeper connection than obligation ever could. When we love God wholeheartedly, obeying him becomes a natural response rather than a burden. A relationship with God grows when we prioritize him above all else. Just as human relationships suffer when one person is constantly neglected, our connection with God weakens when we put other things before him. Making time for him, seeking his will, and allowing him to be the center of our lives strengthens our closeness to him. He is always present and waiting for us to turn to him, but it is up to us to respond by placing him first. God does not desire a distant or formal relationship with us. He invites us into a close personal walk with him. one based on love, trust, and genuine connection. When we move beyond religion and embrace a heartfelt relationship with Him, we experience His presence in a way that transforms every aspect of our lives. A life of gratitude and worship brings us closer to God, transforming our perspective and deepening our relationship with Him. Many people seek closeness with God but overlook the power of gratitude and worship in their spiritual journey. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, allowing us to recognize God's presence in every aspect of our lives. Worship, in turn, is not just about singing songs, but about living a life that honors God. Together, gratitude and worship create a heart posture that draws us into deeper fellowship with Him. Gratitude changes the way we see the world. It is easy to focus on problems, challenges, and unmet desires, but this mindset often leads to frustration and distance from God. When we intentionally practice gratitude, we begin to see His hand at work in our lives. Every blessing, no matter how small, becomes a reminder of His love and faithfulness. Instead of dwelling on what is missing, we learn to appreciate what He has already provided. A grateful heart remains connected to God because it recognizes Him as the source of every good thing. Expressing gratitude also strengthens our faith. When we take time to thank God for past blessings, we develop confidence in His ability to provide for the future. Reflecting on His faithfulness builds trust, especially in difficult seasons. Many times people feel distant from God when they face trials, but gratitude helps shift the focus from the problem to the one who can solve it. Thank you for watching.